Jesce Horton from Panacea Valley Gardens, also the Minority Cannabis Business Association, lets us know what's going on in Oregon. He's got a energy efficiency background and doing some very interesting things up in the Northwest. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so we've got Jesce Horton from Panacea Valley Gardens, that's in Oregon, and also the Minority Cannabis Industry Association. Jesce, thanks for giving us a little bit of time here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much, Seth. I really appreciate any chance I get to speak about these passionate subjects.
Absolutely. You're our first, I believe you are our first Oregon guest.
Wow, that's a shame. That doesn't say good things about can economy, does it?
Well, we're working on it, right? One at a time.
Very good. One step at a time. I appreciate it.
That's it. All right. Well, so you're up there in Oregon. I guess give us a little bit of an overview on Panacea Valley Gardens, for those who don't know.
Sure. Panacea Valley Gardens is a small, local, family-owned cultivation center. We grow outdoor organic, or rather sun-grown organic cannabis in really great greenhouses under the beautiful sun. And we also have an indoor facility where we grow some really great cannabis as well. So we really focus on making sure that we produce our cannabis very responsibly as it relates to the type of products that we use to make our cannabis or to grow our cannabis, but also as it relates to how we use our resources and energy and water and things of that nature.
That is absolutely something that we want to kind of get into on this, in this conversation is the sustainability and energy consumption. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want to kind of get there. It is good to know, though, that you've got sun-grown and you also have indoor facilities. You've got both, best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. We think it's very important to kind of hone in on how we want our cannabis to affect our patients. You know, there's a lot of patients who only want organic cannabis, and I think that's for good reason. And there's a lot of patients who really seek that good, nice, quality indoor flower. So we really want to be able to provide what our patients and what our consumers want. And I think it's also important to give our growers the opportunity to learn different ways to produce cannabis, and that's really been helping out in expanding their knowledge level and their ability to learn more each and every day.
Okay. So, since you're the first Oregon person, I got to ask if you're from Oregon. And the reason I ask is because I don't think you are.
You know what? I think you're definitely right about that. I'm not lucky enough to be from quote unquote the state of Oregon, but I very much consider myself an Oregonian. This is without a doubt home for me.
Got it. All right, so let's just track the path to you becoming an Oregonian, because if you're maybe not born and bred, but you definitely are now, where were you born and bred? Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Yeah, if you track the path of where I've been, Seth, it'll be a very windy road. I started off in Charlottesville, Virginia, then headed over to Richmond, then to Manassas, Virginia. Ended up going down to Columbia, South Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Jacksonville, Florida, Lakeland, Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, Houston, Texas, Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Munich, Germany, and then Atlanta, Georgia. Also, I can't forget about Atlanta. And then found my way out here to Portland, to home, finally.
Okay. That is quite a path, my friend. So... Virginia, I guess in all of those cities, how long were you in Virginia for?
I was in Virginia for about 8 years. I probably have never lived in one city for longer than 3 until I actually got here to Portland.
Okay. All right. So Virginia, and then Manassas you bring up. And of course, Stephen Stills had a band called Manassas. They did one album. And if you haven't heard it, maybe you should or maybe you shouldn't, But so Virginia was just the first 8 years. Okay, fine. South Carolina, how long was that? The state?
South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, I was there for about 3 years as well. This was all throughout my youth.
Uh-huh. And so then now you're about 11 when you get to Florida, right? And how long were you there?
Yeah, that's right. I was in Florida, Jacksonville. Actually, I was in Florida all the way up until college. So I moved around the middle school, and then high school. I found myself in Lakeland, Florida for a few years, and then made my way up to Tallahassee to go to college.
All right. So Florida, I mean, as far as you're concerned, I would imagine that's the thing that you remember most from childhood. That's where you spent your formative years, if you will. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm probably most familiar with Florida, without a doubt.
All right. So, why were we moving around so much here? What were your folks doing for work at the time?
Yeah, well, a lot of people ask me if I was a military brat, but I actually was more of a corporate brat. My dad took a position with his company, started off at a very, very low position and ended up as a vice president. So if you can imagine kind of what it took in those years, you had to take every position that you can in order to get up. We spent a lot of time on the road, and I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, you know the way that you present business, we've spoken in the past. You are truly a corporate brat. That's the first time I've heard that phrase. But rather than military brat, corporate brat. What did your dad kind of ascending, through those levels and ultimately becoming a VP? What kind of thought process or mindset did he instill in you based on that trajectory?
You know what? That's a good question. I think I learned a lot from him. I think probably the main thing that I learned from my dad was just looking at the bright side of things, always being an example of what you want to see, never complaining, or at least complaining as little as possible, and doing it to yourself in a quiet room if at all possible, and just outwardly showing what is good. And I think there's so many positive things about what's going on that it's not really hard to do that.
That is fair. It's not really hard to do that if you're well practiced in it, I would say, Jesce. Right?
Yeah, I could agree. I could agree with that, without a doubt.
We know that it is not easy for everybody that we know to show what is good, as you say.
Right. No, without a doubt, it's a struggle, especially in the industry. There's a lot of hurdles, a lot of things that we can look at that need to get better and that will get better. And it's easy to focus on those things. But I mean, by gosh, we have a cannabis industry right in front of us. And I never thought it would happen. So I just kind of relish in that each and every day.
That's about right. Exactly. So if your dad was kind of doing the corporate thing and ascending from position to position and the family was kind of coming with him, what was your mom doing along the way?
She was lucky enough to have one of those positions where you could always kind of find your way. There's a few out there, nursing and positions in corporate like human resources where it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. That kind of background can serve itself in any kind of capacity in any industry. So she did that. She was a lifetime human resources professional.
All right. And a good HR person is hard to find. So it's good to hear that she was able to find work basically at every stop, right?
Yeah, well, that one is how good she is. That she had to leave every 2 years. I don't know if I like my employees leaving all the time, but I don't give her a hard time about it.
Yeah, it is ironic actually, as she being the HR person. That's true.
Yeah.
So Tallahassee, what school was it that you went to for higher learning, if you will?
Oh man, the most amazing school in the world, the Florida State University.
Okay. All right. So you are a Seminole then?
Yes, I'm a very proud Seminole.
Okay. And so that Burt Reynolds played on the football team there, right?
I do. I stayed in his dorm, the dorm named after him, Reynolds Hall, for a little while.
There you go. And it is we are on the precipice of the NFL season. This evening is the beginning of the 2015-2016 season. And your most recent quarterback, Jameis Winston, I believe, is now shepherding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is that right?
Oh man, if you want to get me excited about a subject, we can talk about cannabis. But if you want to get me really, really excited, we can talk about the Florida State Seminoles, great Jameis Winston, and anything regarding that, the football team. So yes, I'm extremely excited to see that first game.
All right. So we're gonna have to finish this up in time. But and that's by Sunday, by the way. That's when they play. But whatever. At FSU, I don't think you were on the football team. What were you majoring in?
Yeah, I was. I actually got there, and I majored in engineering. So it was industrial engineering. I actually had a focus to start off with on physics and mathematics because I thought I was really smart, and I realized that I wasn't quite that smart. So I ended up minoring in those subjects and majoring in industrial engineering.
Okay. And what can you take us through when you realized that oh, wait a second, this is not my path as far as physics and math. When did that realization hit you?
Wow, I never quite thought about that. I think probably after I got my first couple of C's, and I missed that dean's list a few times. I was a kind of really nerdy kid, and I felt like if I couldn't be at the ultimate top of my class, then maybe I should find something else. So it's kind of that old corporate Jack Welch mentality. If you can't be number one or number two, you probably need to find another subject.
There you go. So you Jack Welched yourself.
Exactly, I did. I ended up starting off with that GE mentality whenever I was in engineering, and actually started off with that company when I was there as an internship. So I kind of got a good bit of Jack Welch type of understanding as it relates to business.
Yeah, talk about that. I think you were there for a few summers in a row. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I got a good bit of my first my engineering feet wet at a great company, General Electric, throughout college. Learned a good bit about operations. I was over in Atlanta at the energy facility, so it was just a really great experience, and really kind of a great touch into the engineering world, and what I had in front of me for the next 6 to 7 years.
Besides what we've already discussed, what else did you take away from from those summers with GE? What did that teach you? And stay away from energy, and I'm talking about the corporate philosophy.
Yeah, I think what it taught me was just always strive for the best. I think that's what I learned through so many people. Whether it was my fraternity whenever I was in school, Omega Psi Phi, or if that was after in my corporate experience, even in the community, and a lot of leaders that I learned from. It was really about just doing your absolute best, and never coming into a room and just being a member, but always trying to come in and be a leader, or at least help to help the leaders.
Excellent. Now let's talk about what you were doing with energy. Those summers in Atlanta. What exactly? You obviously you're an intern, you're a kid, but where were you? What were you doing within the unit?
Yeah, I think at the time I didn't get a chance to dive down directly into the energy and sustainability as it relates to the inner workings and the engineering behind it, and things like that. But when I was at GE during that time, that was when they launched their first campaign, Eco Imagination. You may remember, where they had the really great commercials with the elephants singing in the rain, and really started kind of transforming the mentality of the engineering world to start thinking about how what they did and how the things that they created every day affected the environment, and how it would be so much greater if it affected it in a positive way. So I think that's when I started to just think more about that, and it really helped me as I started to get further in my career.
Yeah. And as you graduate, did you go directly to Siemens? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I went right to Siemens in Atlanta, and we did a little rotational program, so I got a chance to travel around and learn a few different things there.
Well, and what are the highlights for us so that we understand? You graduate and then you're doing this rotation. What were some of those highlights?
Yeah, sure. So I joined the rotational program. It was the project management leadership development program that was really focused on just that project management. How do you come into an engineering project, or come into an engineering company, grab a project, start it from the beginning to the end, from the planning all the way to the tracking and the metrics, to make sure that it was a success, and then improving for the next project. So that was the overall idea of it. So I started in Atlanta. It was a 6-month rotation where I learned a lot about finance and things of that nature. I went over to Houston, Texas, where I got a chance to spend time in the postal automation division and also in the oil and gas business unit, just giving me a really broad spectrum of what it took to learn, about this large company that was Siemens. After that, I moved up to Baltimore, Maryland, where I got a chance to really focus on operations, working every day with field service engineers and controlling their schedules, going along on calls to them to help fix equipment, to help commission and install and commission equipment. And then moved back down to Atlanta, and that's where I got my first delve really into the hardcore energy efficiency world, where I joined the new business unit that Siemens had that was called Siemens Energy Efficiency. So we really focus heavily on going into industrial facilities, auditing, their processes, identifying areas where they could save energy, where they could reduce their overall environmental footprint. Luckily, we had a great suite of products that we were able to implement in a lot of those projects. And then also a suite of products that helped us to track all of the metrics, because that to me is one of the most important things, is making sure that after you implement that solution, whether that's something in a grow room or whether that's something in a big, huge automation facility, if you're smart about it, if you're a true business person, you have to know whether or not that is going to help you, or whether or not you need to improve upon it again, or whether or not you need to just scrap it and start over. So that's a big piece that I think really lends way to the cannabis industry.
Without question, and we're getting to that. Now we're starting to kind of show our cards here. Absolutely, audit, ID, implement, track. I want to touch on that once we get to Panacea Valley, but I think as far as the geographies are concerned, we've hit Virginia, we've hit South Carolina, we've hit Florida, Texas, Maryland, Georgia. So if tracking you correctly, we've hit all of those states. What about DC? What about Germany? Those are the next two, I think, geographies that we haven't hit on just yet.
Right. So actually, I spent about another 4 months after my 6 months in DC, and in addition to the Baltimore rotation. So that was right before I went down to Atlanta. It was kind of conjoined rotation there for almost a year, and then I ended up going down to Atlanta for that energy position.
All right. And then, Germany, that's an outlier. When did you get over there, and what were you doing?
Yeah, so Germany, that was a great story, a great opportunity for me. So as a part of the energy and environmental efficiency program that I was working on, within the business unit, we put on a big, program really focused on not only our customers, or not only the people out there who we wanted to get business from, but also our suppliers, people that we were working with, in order to help us to reduce the environmental footprint and the energy, and improve the energy efficiency in our own supply chain. So we started gathering up a number of our suppliers, in addition to our own facilities across the U.S., doing audits, and again, tracking all the way to success. We had really good projects, really good success there, and ended up getting kind of some notoriety from our headquarters over in Germany. As you know, Siemens is a German company. So they ended up reaching out to me to tell a story about the work that we were doing on the project that I was managing. They actually ended up doing a story about it as a part of what was called the Siemens Values Award. So what they did is they identified about 5 people in each country, or in each the major countries that Siemens was operating, and picked a story, and we ultimately got to submit that story, tell our story, and they ended up picking one winner from a number of different countries. So I luckily got a chance to go over to Germany to accept an award from the CEO based on the work that our team was doing in the U.S., and ended up meeting someone who knew another person in Germany who wanted me to come over for some work at the headquarters to not only work on general strategy position type of things, but also to really focus on implementing those best practices that we learned in the USA as it related to energy efficiency.
Congratulations. Look at that. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it was cool. I mean, I really think it was more so representative of the great work that our team was doing. I'm not a super energy engineer. I'm not the guy who's sitting down there doing all the calculations to figure out the exact right solution. I was just the guy to kind of help to pull some of those people together. So I really more so attributed to those real brainiacs who were putting together that great work.
Fair enough. But you were there in Germany. You spent some time there. Does that mean that you had to learn the language?
I did. I did have to learn a bit of German. I spent about a year in German classes here in the U.S. before I went over there for my rotation. So I got a chance to learn a good bit and be pretty immersed. But as I got over to Munich, I realized that was a very international city, so I didn't get a chance to use as much German as I learned.
All right. All right. So you're there in Germany. You're at headquarters. You're really, involved there in energy engineering. When did you finally kind of leave Siemens, and how did you trek on over to Oregon?
Yeah. So long story short, I ended up spending about a year over in Munich, Germany. Got a chance to do a number of great things, travel around Europe and a number of other countries, and I think implement a number of great projects that ultimately helped the company to succeed, specifically as it relates to meeting their energy targets for the 5 years after I left. So I came back to the U.S. Had a chance to kind of pick a job that I thought, out of a few different positions that were offered that I thought was going to be the perfect position for me. Ended up coming out to Portland, Oregon, which was very lucky for me as it relates to being in Portland. Not so lucky as it related to my job, because I realized that I hated that job more so than I hated anything. But I was very lucky to get the opportunity. It was a great position and a great chance for me to get to know Portland, Oregon.
All right. We'll leave the position that we didn't love alone. You did get to know and love Portland. And then I guess where's the jump? Where's the leap into cannabis?
Yeah, so during the year that I was here working with that position, I really had a great affinity with cannabis. I had a number of back issues as it related to a really bad car accident that I had when I was in college, and cannabis was one of the things that really helped me to not have to go with that real hard medication. So that was when I really developed a strong affinity for it and started really getting very interested in the medicinal value of the plant. However, I was in Florida, I was in Georgia, which is not very friendly toward cannabis at all. So I didn't dabble much in it, especially as it related to growing. But when I got here and everything was legal, I just went to the dispensary, got my first little clone, and started growing it, and really just loved it. Had some really good success, not only in helping to solve my own back pain and by way of just growing my own medicine, but also picked up a few patients, elderly patients, minority patients that happened to be in the Portland, Oregon area, who had some issues with sleep disorders, had issues with back pain, glaucoma, and things like that. So I was able to also grow medicine by way of the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program for these patients. Just again, started having more success, really feeling that fulfillment that I think is really important in anything that anyone does, just really, knowing that you're helping other people and doing what you really love. So then I just started thinking, maybe I could do this, full time. So at that point, I kind of quit my job. I only had $20,000, which for some reason I thought that I could start a business in the cannabis industry with $20,000. I quickly realized, Seth, that, as I'm sure you know that wasn't going to happen, or it wasn't going to be really easy. So after I quit my job, I was sitting in my room and doing that quiet complaining to myself that I talked about earlier, and realized I had to kind of just jump up and make it happen. So I reached out to my parents and some other retirees from my dad's old company who were looking to kind of get involved and put their retirement money in places that they thought could help to I guess help not only them but help the community as well. So they loaned me some money, and I started up my business here, and kind of the rest is history.
Indeed, but let's go ahead and talk about that history. Is it that's the beginning of 2014 is when you kind of settled in there? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I ended up leaving my job toward the end. Actually, it was January of 2014. That was after I had about a year and a half of growing experience myself. And
Mhm.
then right around that time was when I started getting together some of those folks and starting the business.
Okay. And so what were kind of the first steps? If we're only talking about a year and a half ago, but of course, cannabis is dog years. So, that's about, 10 and a half years ago for normal people.
That's
But,
pretty true.
yeah, but in the last 18 months, I guess maybe give us the tent poles of accomplishments. January 2014, you started with what, and then you got to X, Y, and then kind of Z being now. What would those tent poles be?
Sure, sure. I think we would say around January is when I really first started to realize that I had to put together a really solid business plan. I had to put together something that was going to serve as a guide for the business in years to come, and that really helped me based on kind of the business development experience that I had whenever I was at Siemens. So I kind of put that knowledge to work for me, developed that business plan around January of 2014 to understand how we were going to pay our bills, understanding that we weren't really able to make a profit and we had to give away our medicine to our patients. So how are we going to be able to pay the bills? Just anticipating that legalization could come. We had to start this business being viable as it was, as a medicinal business. So we had to
Mm.
really put a lot of work into that. And then I started reaching out to my parents, who were my first loan participants. They gave me a loan right around in February. Reached out to a number of my dad's longtime friends, some of our family friends, and started talking to them about what I was doing, and they were very eager to learn more. And luckily, they had a few dollars that they can pitch in to help us to get started. And I would say around the summer of 2014, we identified the property that we wanted to go after. We had kind of just a basic garage type of grow where we had a number of lights that was able to sustain maybe about 4 patients that I had at the time. But we wanted to kind of expand a bit and get more into the outdoor growing as well. So I just started reaching out to a number of contacts that I have, really great people here in Portland, Oregon. I can't speak enough about how great these people are, and I identified a great property for us that had a really nice indoor facility and some great outdoor growing space that we can build some greenhouses. So around that time, the summer of 2014, we started doing some of the work on that property. Started getting the plants in there around the very end of 2014, and then started producing right around maybe April, May, June of 2015. So it hasn't been a very long story at all. But I've been lucky enough to have some great people. I have great web designers that I was able to work with that kind of helped us with a number of those things. My parents helped us to come, and do some of the trimming on our first flower. And since then, we've been able to hire some really, really great people. One great lady from Applegate, from Southern Oregon, who has some great experience with outdoor growing, and a number of my family members as well. So it's kind of a really close knit type of community, and we were able to put that together just only months ago, the beginning of 2015.
Yeah, and I love the fact that mom and dad were trimming that first batch. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's definitely a story, a true testament to cannabis, without a doubt. My mom was the one who, when I came home sometimes and I was, medicating, right? I had a little cannabis. She would be the first one when I walked in the door to try to smell my clothes and look in my eyes and make sure that I hadn't been consuming anything. And my dad would be in the corner just shaking his head and lecturing and say, one day you guys are gonna realize this thing is a little different than you think. And here we
Exactly.
are.
Here we are indeed. So, two quick questions about, the differences. One is indoor versus outdoor. The other, though, is medical versus adult use. What are you guys experiencing there in Oregon? From your perspective, from Panacea Valley perspective, what's the difference in the way that you're servicing patients versus customers, and what they're looking for, and the just basically the experience from each perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question, Seth. As of right now, we haven't had a chance to service any customers, quote unquote, as we would say. We've only had a medical program. We're looking forward to October 1st, which will be the first day that we are allowed to serve just typical or any customers. So, we haven't had direct experience with that, but I have, done some studying. I spent some time in Denver and Washington talking to a number of great business owners, dispensary owners, cultivation centers. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is just that in the medicinal community, we tend to see people who have had a lot of experience with cannabis, whether that be people who have been medicating their entire lives and just happen to be in the medicinal community, or people who have been in the medicinal community. It's been around for a number of years. So you typically see, outside of the people who are joining kind of new to it every day, people who are more so experienced. So you see the higher dosages that they want in edibles. We also are lucky enough to have an edibles line called Panacea Valley Gourmet Edibles. And we very much see the difference there, where we kind of designed that line to be more so focused on maybe what you would see as the recreational patient, the people who would want a lower dosage to kind of get an idea of where they wanted to actually be to be inebriated, if for lack of a better word. What was their right dosage? But in the medical arena, usually the people want the very high dosages. They want the 100 milligram pieces of chocolate, or the 100 milligram bars, or whatever it may be. So that's been the main difference there. And I think as it relates to the adult use and the medical community, I would say we're going to start seeing a lot of changes as it relates to the THC percentages being the main focus, and maybe shifting more towards the terpene analysis and the cannabinoid profile as a whole, to give people a better understanding of how that plant, or how that flower, or how that strain is going to really affect them.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely what we're hearing from person to person, from state to state, without question, from country to country for that matter. As far as getting set for October 1st, what still needs to be done from from first your perspective, and also from the state's perspective? What needs to be done in order to kick those adult use doors open?
Right. Well, I by no means am a legislative expert, so I won't say exactly what has to happen from the state. But from my understanding, the governor has signed the bill as it is right now. That program, which was supposed to start in January 1 of 2016, will be open by way of medical dispensaries to all people above 21 years of age, starting October 1st. So I think it's just a matter of time, and also a matter of making sure that everyone is getting ready, in the dispensaries to service all of those adult use patients, or adult use consumers rather. That's it, and it's an exciting time, and you're going to be kind of prepared in a different way than most. Talk about what your experience is in terms of cultivating sun-grown versus growing indoor. Yeah, that's a great question, Seth. This is only our second season running outdoor, or I don't even like using the term outdoor. I think Steve D'Angelo has done a great job in kind of helping to push, that language in a more favorable direction, which is sun-grown. So we've only sun-grown, exactly. Right. So we've only had a couple of years of doing that, and so I by no means would say that I'm an expert there either. But what I've learned is that the sun is amazing. The sun and nature is amazing, and I very much see why no other plants or no other produce is grown under lights the same way that cannabis is, because it's really just not efficient at all. However, there are very good and very viable benefits to indoor flower as well, and I think the customers and the patients demand that, and ultimately they are the ones who we need to be trying to reach. So I think there's a really good balance, but I'm very, very impressed with the ability to grow really quality cannabis under the sun. Yeah, absolutely. And so then let's jump into this energy engineering stuff. Bringing your experience from your other corporate gigs to what you're doing now. As far as the audit, the ID, the implementation, and the tracking, what are you thinking can be done from a Panacea Valley Gardens perspective if you're not already doing it now? Right. Well, what we're doing now, I think it pleases me, what we've been able to do each and every day by way of, just kind of getting further in that picture of more and more energy efficiency toward that real picture of sustainability in that garden. However, there's really a long way to go. So, what we've been able to implement so far is just some basic automation, basic software technologies, great stuff I was able to learn from the amazing company Siemens. We pulled in a PLC, which is a programmable logic controller. A lot of growers out there, or a number of growers out there, really smart guys, are starting to use this technology as opposed to having so many different systems in their room. Bringing in this PLC that can link in your fans, that can link in your lights, so forth and so on. That's really helped us to get first a better picture of how we're using the energy in our facility, and also how efficient it is by using it in different ways, by using sensors and things of that nature. So ultimately, it's kind of just bringing a computer into your room, putting in a bunch of sensors, and just finding ways that you can really utilize that data.
And I think you're, just focusing in on the indoor grow. What efficiencies have you found? What are some of the basic immediate learnings that you kind of gained from implementing that PLC?
Right. So, even in the small time of us doing it, we did want to make sure that we had a baseline. That's something that, I always want to do. So for the first 3 months, for the first crop, we did not use that type of technology. We only used the basic type of equipment. So we didn't cycle in. We didn't use a lot of sensors and things like that, just to get a baseline of the energy that we were using. And ultimately, after we brought that in, I wouldn't count the next 3 months or the next 2 months after that, because that was a lot of implementation. But for the last 3 months, we've been able to, I think, track a really significant reduction in our energy usage of probably about 20 to 25% is what we've seen so far. And in our water usage, we're reducing it about the same, maybe even a little higher, closer to 30%.
That's crazy. And it's cycling in. What explicitly or specifically are you doing to kind of gain those efficiencies?
Right. So, for example, we brought in, some of the better lighting technology to start off. We had the basic hoods. We had some of the things that we brought over from my initial grow to start off with that baseline. We ended up bringing some double-ended technology and a few LEDs for our veg, which was, of course, a significant improvement as it related to lighting. But what we also did is we started doing a little bit more cycling of our equipment, not only based on basic CFM calculations or based on an idea of how long we should have those fans on, but we started cycling it based on specifically the parameters that we wanted. For example, we only turned our fans on only when the CO2 got to a level that was a bit high, or when the humidity got to a level that was a bit high, instead of using the big humidifiers that we have, which use a bit more energy than some of the fans that we have for automatic exhaust. We would use those fans first. So we would tell that PLC, okay, when the humidity gets to this level, let's use this fan first, since it's a lower energy. And if we can get it down to that level within this certain amount of time, then we don't have to bring on that humidifier. So things like that, and kind of optimizing how we use our equipment as it relates to water. Starting to use kind of getting away from just watering, overwatering, but moving towards watering based on weight, watering based on tension meters, are things that we're starting to do more experimenting with. And also, reusing some of the water that we have, that the dehumidifiers that we have, we're collecting that water and making sure that we can use it in different aspects of our grow.
All right. So, what might sound like basic stuff, but it's huge. You're you're really using not only science, but straightforward thinking, straightforward reasoning to make this happen. Are you able to do anything in the way of efficiencies in the sun-grown environment?
Yeah, that's first of all, it's a great observation. It is basic stuff. It's not, we're not energy experts as it relates to, some of the guys that I know out there in the engineering world. We're not those guys, but we're able to implement some of these basic things, what we would call in the engineering environment, low-hanging fruit, that really ultimately hold most of the energy usage in a facility. I mean, we're in cannabis facilities where we can very easily identify the main energy hogs and try to find ways to improve it. So it's not a long enigma or a big puzzle that you have to figure out, but it's just about making sure that you implement it. And I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but what we've identified most is that tracking and just communicating how we're using our energy to the people who are using it every day. That has been something that I think has held the majority of our additional energy savings, in addition to kind of just using better equipment. But as it relates to the greenhouse, the question there, we haven't, we're a very archaic greenhouse right now. I think what we want to do is we want to move more towards automation, more towards really making that greenhouse more like an indoor facility by way of using light depth and things of that nature. But right now we're very, kind of quote unquote archaic in that we're just using the sun. We're no-till as far as our soil, so we're reusing all of our soil from the last season. And we're only using things like BioT. And we're also going in there and hand watering ourselves, and not using things like pumps. So we're very, very basic. And I don't see, I guess at the scale that we are right now, which isn't a very large garden, but I don't see a lot of detriment to being that way.
Yeah. So you've got some stuff going on the sun-grown side as well, but specifically on each side, on either side, on every side, track and communicate. Track and communicate, right?
That is it, man. That is it, Seth. If I could, you heard me. I definitely spoke about it. I didn't speak about it in the sense of, tracking and communicating itself is not going to save your energy, but energy really is affected by the users, by people understanding how it's affecting you, understanding whether or not it's efficient, understanding whether that's the best way to go or not. So if you can track that and you can show them and they can see that, and even better, can they be measured upon the amount of energy, or can you give them an incentive for reducing the amount of energy but increasing the yield, things like that. If we're able to kind of hone in on those things, we're really able, I think, to make the biggest dent in, kind of in this energy picture within the cannabis industry.
Absolutely. And you're speaking to anybody that's growing. When you say reduce energy while increasing yield, I think everybody's going to listen to that.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to throw that in, right? I mean, I understand completely. We're all a business, or at least, it comes down to, again, having more medicine for the patients, whether you're in a medicinal or a adult use state. More quality, better cannabis is better, right? But, you can't sacrifice the quality in order to get more, and you definitely can't sacrifice the yield just to reduce your energy if you want to be a sustainable business who's going to be here tomorrow.
That's it. Like we said, not being sustainable just isn't sustainable, right?
Exactly. As simple as that, right? We're definitely dropping pearls on them today, but yeah, it's really simple.
All right, good. So when, and that gives us a good sense of what you're doing at Panacea Valley, and we're excited for you and the rest of the state October 1st. When, though, just to switch gears a little bit to the Minority Cannabis Industry Association, when did you start putting that together?
Yeah, so I started, again, kind of around the end of 2014, so it wasn't too long ago. And this was after I gotten a chance to spend a little time in the community. I'd spent about a year, just going around to different conferences, spending a year, going to different legislative events, going down to Salem, Oregon, and really kind of learning about the industry and about how real Oregonians who've been here all their life wanted to have it implemented, right? So just started learning, really immersing myself. And that's what I was really happy about, and that's what I was happy about joining the cannabis industry, is that I got a chance to find something that I could really immerse myself in. So I spent that first year getting down, going to every conference that I could, talking to as many people as I could, business owners and regulators, right? And I really just, no matter how much support I got, and I got a great deal of support, that was never the reason. It was that I felt that we were blocked out, but I felt that there just were so many things stacked up against minorities, against women, against people of people of poverty levels, as it related to truly benefiting from this amazing industry. I really just started seeing that was missing. And, as I mentioned earlier, right, you can sit in the room yourself and complain, but overall, as it comes, you have to be the example that you want to see, right? So there's only so long that you can complain. I take this from one of my good friends, Ben McInnes, who is the advisory committee chairman on medical marijuana here in Oregon, right? One of his sayings is that there's only so long that you can complain before you got to do something about it, right? So that was what I started feeling, is there was only so long I can complain of the lack of people benefiting, or the lack of minorities who were, displaying themselves in the industry. Or really what it is, Seth, is not just that, but when you ultimately look at the industry, if we are people who really want to see this industry go to the next level and be a shining star to the world and to all other industries, not just be another industry, but a better industry, we have to understand the makeup of our industry. And the makeup of our industry is the largest demographic of any non-essential product that I think known to man. I mean, there's no demographic or no type of person, no culture, and even age, as it relates to the medicinal benefits of it, that cannot benefit, or that does not want or need, for my belief, to benefit from cannabis. So understanding that, which is the true essence of the flower, right? What all got us around, and we were able to identify with so many people just by sitting around and passing the joint, right? What the flower teaches us is exactly that. So if we're building this industry without that as a cornerstone, and without that as a true basis of how we want to build it, I think we're missing the boat. First, as it relates to cannabis being a means of social justice and a means of good, which I think we all understand that it can be, and that I believe that it is, but also, which again, it all relates back, and no matter who you are, you care about this economically, right? If we want this industry to really be where it can be economically, and do the good, as it relates to that, then we have to have those things as a real cornerstone of how we're building it. And that comes to the people that we're serving. One of our tenets within Minority Cannabis Business Association is patient awareness, right? Are we reaching out to all of the minorities and the women who have symptoms and have diseases that can very much be helped by cannabis, who have no idea? Are we reaching out to them to help them with cannabis? Are we reaching out to people who want to be involved with careers to help them learn how to get involved? Are we reaching out to business owners and people who want to start organizations like ours? Are we helping them and really helping to demystify the process, which I know that we aren't, because I know even to myself it's very mystical, right? So there's just so much work to be done, in that regard. And I think the good is very easy to see.
Absolutely. You mentioned one of the tenets, I'm here on minoritycannabis.org, economic empowerment and social justice being the other tenets, right?
Exactly. Economic empowerment, bringing in more people who want to be involved by way of a career. Who want to be involved by way of, being a business owner or an investor, just helping them to find ways to attain that money, to find ways to get that knowledge, to find ways to find that network of people that you can work with to make things happen. And then as it relates to social justice, I mean, the picture, the story that we sometimes, I would say it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I feel like we hear it too much. The negative impact of cannabis in the minority community, how there's so many people in jail, how we're being blocked out. But at the same time, you can never tell that story enough, because it's very much having an effect on what I was mentioning earlier, getting the industry to where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. That's it. One quick way to solve it is to be a business owner within the industry. How about that?
Yeah. Just come on in. I mean, that's super easy nowadays, right?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly right. That is one way, is to jump in, again, be the example that you want to see in the industry, and to jump in and be a business owner. But, we know there's a lot of hurdles there, not, even as it relates to just being a minority, and those typical hurdles of owning a business, and not even as it just relates to the fact that so many states are blocking out people who have been negatively affected by the war on drugs, mainly, minorities and people of low poverty levels, but also in a number of other ways.
Yeah. So that's great. I did mention minoritycannabis.org. That's the website. So we'll want folks to check out what you guys are doing there. And are we missing anything as far as the MCIA?
No, no, it was previously the MCIA, the Minority Cannabis Industry Association, but we started working closer with the NCIA, and we didn't want to have the kind of the name snafu there, so we decided to be the Minority Cannabis Business Association, the MCBA. And we're very much still at a formation process. What we've been able to do is kind of set up the framework that we want to start bringing on different chapters across the U.S. We have so much enthusiasm and so much, I guess, just focus on wanting to kind of carry that banner and just carry that initiative of those three tenets in all these different states that are opening up in the industry. But also, we're in the final round of bringing on the final board members, which I think is really an all-star list of people across the nation from different cultural backgrounds, different aspects within the industry. Whether that be doctors or judges, things of that nature who will be coming on the board, and also different perspectives. People who more so identify with the subculture or the underculture, kind of the driving culture of the cannabis industry, the high times culture. Right? I think that is extremely important, and we can't forget that has been the driving force of what we have in front of us, but also people who very much understand the National Cannabis Industry Association side of things and, kind of the business aspect. So I think in developing this board, we truly want to be, again, that example of what we want to see in the industry, a diverse group of people, not just based on our skin color, but very much so based on our perspective, based on our culture, and based on our place in the industry.
Excellent. All right. I love it. And thank you for that clarification. So, because when I said MCIA, I even thought of myself, and then you pointed out, no, Minority Cannabis Business Association makes it much clearer. All right. So, what we've got now, Jesce, is the final three questions, and they are, what has most surprised you in cannabis? That's the first question. What has most surprised you in life? That's the second question. And then the last question is on the soundtrack of Jesce Horton's life. What is one of the tracks, one of the most important songs for you? So I'll ask you those three questions just after we get through this JESCE stuff here. Why are we spelling it the way that we do? It is extremely memorable. As soon as I met you, I know exactly how to spell your name, but I don't think I know anybody else that spells it that way.
Yeah, you can definitely. I'll get my mom on three-way if you want, and we can ask her why she decided to put that down. I have no idea. I just I'm lucky. I feel like because it's unique, so I'm happy about it, and I feel like it makes sense. I've heard so many things, Jesce and Jesk, and I've even heard right. Jessica, which I couldn't quite understand, but I'm used to it.
There you go. And so thanks, Mom, I guess, is what we'll do there.
Right.
But as far as what has most surprised you in cannabis, you've been in it for either a year and a half or 10.5 years, either one. What's most surprised you along the way here?
Right. Well, what I would think, my first reaction would be, what has most surprised me about cannabis? I would say the fast evolution of the industry and of the market and of the consciousness of the plant. But honestly, now that I think about it, and that, now that I get even more involved, I would say the most surprising thing to me is the amazing medicinal value of the plant, and the fact that we're probably at such a low infancy level of what we really know about what it can do to benefit people and to benefit mankind. So I think that, to me, is the most surprising thing, the good and the amazing values that this plant has.
Absolutely. It's a great answer. As far as life, what's most surprised you in life, Jesce Horton?
That is deep, Seth. What's most surprising me in life? I didn't know we were going to go down this path.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I would say what's most surprised me about life is the amazing connection between people, I think. As I get older and I start to meet different people, and I start to travel more and see different things across the world, I just see that, ultimately, the one thing that you see no matter what is the connection and the importance of being close to people and of helping people, and being a service to other people, and how that can really be a tool, no matter how small you may see that act of being, really be a tool to help change the world and continue to move it, in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. You've definitely got a strong kind of backbone. As far as I was just going to say enlightenment. We'll go ahead and call it that. You just seem to kind of understand how it all goes, Jesce. So I appreciate that from a personal perspective. And focusing in on that last question, what track, what song is on the Jesce Horton soundtrack of life?
Wow. You know what? I have never been a huge music person, believe it or not, Seth. I'm a plant guy, but for some, most of the time that goes together. I can't say that there are really any songs that really speak to me directly that I can think of. There's so many, I would say that I really do enjoy. I don't have any favorites, but I will say that my favorite artist or favorite group would have to be Outkast, without a doubt. I know that it's that very southern of me, very Atlanta, Georgia of me, but I really feel like a lot of their music speaks to me, and just being retrospective on life in general, and understanding that there's a lot out there, not just everything that's happening on Earth, but there's a huge galaxy, a huge universe out there, and just think how small you are, and how important that is in itself. I think that's probably it.
Well, then, we can certainly respect that, I guess, with apologies to Miss Jackson, for that matter, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's one. That's one. There's no Miss Jacksons in my life. I've treated them all very well, so I don't have to say
That's it. Good stuff. All right. Well, Jesce, listen, thanks so much for your time. We'll go ahead and promote that minoritycannabis.org website one last time. You guys are doing great things with energy efficiency, and I know you and I are going to be continuing to talk about energy engineering and what we can do in the cannabis space. Best of luck with Panacea Valley Gardens as you get into adult use, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yes. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, minoritycannabis.org. Please, if you get a chance, check out our garden website, pvgardens.com, our edibles website, pvgedibles.com. And also our dispensary, panaceapdx.com. If you're ever in Portland, we'd love to have anyone who's listening. Thanks so much, Seth. I always enjoy talking to you.
You got it. Jesce Horton. So there you have it. Jesce Horton. Clearly a guy that is a hard worker, and I said it to him. Kind of enlightened about the way that he goes about life, and certainly looking at the energy needed to produce cannabis in a different way, looking for solutions. Really appreciate it. Jesce Horton.